Welcome back, everyone. So today I wanted to take a look at the Life Engine again. It's been a little while, and I wanted to show off some cool things that you can do in the Life Engine that I don't think most people are aware of. So we're going to look at this Simulation Controls tab, and here we can control various rules about the simulation that change kind of how it behaves and performs. And we'll be changing this movers can produce food parameter. We're going to set it to true. And so now movers, the organisms with the little blue cells, can also produce food. Usually that's off, and now it is on. We'll also be using this little button here. If you click that, you can now place walls in the world. So a wall just blocks organisms. So you can see I'm drawing this big wall down the middle of the map. I'm separating these groups of organisms out. And now here's a horizontal one as well. And the organisms are now separated from each other. And we should start to see them start to kind of genetically drift from one another. Each of these little ecosystems in its little corner will start to become very different. So we're essentially building a zoo here. And additionally, these organisms should look very different from what we've seen in previous videos because of the first change that we made, that movers can now produce food. So if you look at it now, right, most of these organisms in the, say, the top right corner are just movers, right? There's no static organisms. They don't need any static organisms to produce food. So let's take a look at some of these organisms here. I'm just going to slow it down a bit and use the selection tool. Just look at some of these. So on the top right we have some basic hunters, just hunting down producers. Top left, no eyes on the organisms, just some fairly simple hunters and producers. Bottom left, some slightly more complicated hunters. They've got eyes, and some just pure producers as well. And on the right, looks like, well, it's mostly just exactly the same as it would be if the movers couldn't produce food. It's pretty classical. So that's interesting. Alright, let's speed it up here and let it evolve. Okay, we need to slow this way down because it looks like the guys on the top right are about to go extinct. So let's take a look at this. There's these little producers that if they die out, the whole system will die out because there will be no way to produce food. So these hunters have almost hunted them down to extinction. And on the left, it looks like there's slightly larger producers with purple defensive cells defending them against these hunters that accompany them. It's kind of interesting. It's sort of like speciation. They're separating into these distinct species that play these distinct roles. One produces food, one hunts down the producers and eats them, and they're very different types of organisms. So it's kind of interesting. It's more or less exactly what you should expect in evolutionary ecosystems. So, cool. So if you'll notice the bottom right, it looks like the static producers are starting to die out, which might actually be a problem. If they die out, there will be no source of food in that corner. Whereas on the bottom left, looks like for the most part it's been dominated by these fairly large producers. They've started to get a little more aggressive. The speciation is breaking down a bit. They now have killer cells, they now have eye cells, and look at this, they run away from everything. They're very skittish. So they're not really hunters, they probably use those red cells more defensively. Oh wow, some of these organisms are looking a little weird now. They're growing quite large. Let's take a look at some of these on the left here. Bottom left, we've got some kind of strange looking organisms, lots of eyes and producers and killers and defensive cells. And top left, they're looking kind of rounded. They have eyes as well. They're kind of converging onto a similar sort of organism. Whereas on the top right, they've got these weird organisms. They've got kind of like a tail on them with eyes and defensive cells, and very interesting. Got some big, weird-looking organisms here, single-eyed. Some of these guys have two eyes. Let's take a look at these guys. Look at this one. He looks left and right. Kind of funny looking. Alright, so now we're gonna have to make these guys fight. We just have to. So place your bets. Who's gonna win? You got these big bulky guys with lots of eyes and aggressive red cells and purple cells and green cells. And then on the right, slightly smaller organisms, more eyes. I would guess these guys, the guys on the left, will win. But could be the guys on the right. We will see. Hard to predict these things. So you can just erase the walls, by the way, by selecting the wall tool and then right-clicking. And this is erasing the walls now. So let's go ahead and slow it down and see how this plays out. Yeah, the big guys won. Okay, so if we're gonna make the guys on the bottom fight each other, let's make it to where we're just gonna speed up the simulation so that the guys on the bottom right can actually evolve a little bit longer, because typically the longer they evolve, the bigger they get. The bigger they get, the better of a chance they have in the fight. So that should give them a better chance. However, the guys on the bottom right have a very different ecosystem. So if you look at it, there's a lot of pure predators and pure producers, and it's kind of a different ecosystem. Maybe they'll have an advantage over this ecosystem on the bottom left that is mostly just the same organism. So let's go ahead and actually clear the walls. Let's let them fight and see if these pure predators have an advantage. Well, the predators are still alive, but it looks like they're struggling. It's funny to think these organisms actually all have the same ancestor. It's kind of unexpected, but the first organism that seeded this environment is the common ancestor of all of these very divergent organisms that you see now. Like if we take a look at some of these organisms on the bottom here, like this guy is... Oh, that's actually one of the predators. The predators are actually doing pretty well. They're surviving. That's kind of cool. That is awesome. Wow. And look at some of the... look at the size of this thing. It's 13 cells. I mean, these are big mutant organisms with tons of eyes and mouths and everything. That's fun to watch. You know, actually, in doing this, we have completed one of the challenges, the Mega Fauna Challenge, which is to grow an organism without editing anything directly, to grow an organism with more than 10 cells, a mover organism with more than 10 cells, which we have done and surpassed. Looks like the little predators are still coexisting with the bigger organisms on the bottom. Kind of cool. This really is a fun version of the simulation to run. It's very complicated. It produces some very weird looking, large, diverse organisms that are very competitive and efficient. It's fun to watch how they grow and change and compete. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and clear this final barrier and see how the organisms react. Yeah, looks like the big guys have won again. The little predators are completely extinct now, and it looks like the other producers are getting pushed out quite quickly, so that's just about the same thing that happened before. So, this is a fun scenario to run. Go ahead and give it a try yourself, and have fun with it.